What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Survivor NSFW. And Johnny Fairplay has something going on. I don't know if he's at a concert or seeing a comedian or what he is doing, but this is the first time since I've been doing Survivor NSFW with Johnny that Johnny's been MIA, which it could be a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because I don't have to deal with Johnny's 5 million promotions for JohnnyFairplay.com every 5 minutes. Instead, I can promote this, you guys. Go to blackstoneproducts.com, buy a griddle, and use my code BlackstoneBeer for 10% off. Anyway, I am serious, but I'm joking. We are here. We're live on YouTube, and I'm with the legend, good friend of mine, Lex Vandenberg from Survivor Africa and Survivor All-Stars. Lex, how you doing, brother?
I'm great. And you know what, everybody out there, I can guarantee you just a few things as the surrogate fair play tonight. I can guarantee that there's going to be a lot fewer wrestling references, obscure wrestling references. There's probably going to be less cursing, though I cannot guarantee that it's going to be PG-13. We'll have to see how that goes. But I can definitely, as the surrogate fair play, I can definitely guarantee you that there will be a lot less references to fair play.
Oh God!
Yeah. I won't be selling you T-shirts every 5 minutes. Matt. I'm super stoked to be on the podcast today. I think this is gonna be fun.
Totally. And so for those of it, out there, it's like, so I live in Ohio. Lex lives in California. So Lex had to, work out figuring out the Eastern time.
How to watch it. Yeah, how to watch it. I mean, I know there are people out there that do it every week. It was a little bit tricky for me, but I did figure it out. And so, every 5 or 10 minutes, I had to kind of click the pop-up ads that came out and put them out of the way. But I got to see Survivor 3 hours earlier, which is kind of cool.
That is cool. And
I get to be on your podcast, which is cooler still.
Hell yeah. And so anyways, man, tonight it was a fun episode. Last week, was the premiere, which I thought was actually a good premiere. We kind of figured out what the Island of the Idols really was. We got Sandra and we have Rob. And I want to make a comment here that's pretty funny to our listeners. So Johnny was at his live event in Florida, and they showed, Sandra trying to tell somebody how to make fire on the Island of the Idols. And on our podcast, I was trying to get Johnny Fairplay fired up. I was like, man, Sandra Diaz-Twine does not know how to make fire. Ain't no way she doesn't make fire, right? I'm joking around. I'm stoking the fire to get Johnny fired up, because he always does his Pearl Islands references, of course. So I'm at dinner with my mom. It was her birthday dinner and my family, and I get a text, and it's from Sandra Diaz-Twine. And it said, Matt, by the way, I can make fire, blah, 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 right? And at first I thought, did Sandra, is she texting me or did she accidentally text me, right? so then I'm like, and then she says something else. So I respond, I'm like, holy shit, she listened to our podcast, obviously, and she heard me. I'm friends with Sandra. I'm totally cool with her. And
I love Sandra.
Oh, dude, she's hilarious.
Sandra and I, outside, we haven't played together, but outside the game, we're thick as thieves. So,
right. So, dude, so I'm like, oh man, she listened to that stuff, and I'm started thinking like, what did I really say? So we're texting back and forth. I'm kind of doing a little bit of damage control, and then my phone rings. It's Sandra. So I told my mom, I was like, we had gotten done eating. I'm like, Mom, I got to take this phone call. It's the queen, 2-time winner of Survivor. I can't deny her call. I walk out, and I'm on the phone in the parking lot sitting there. Basically, Sandra's defending herself that she can make fire, which she can make fire. And we started talking about the season, and she wasn't giving any spoilers or anything like that. But I was kind of asking her about, her experience and just chatting. But it was so funny, dude, because like, just like I'm sitting here doing the podcast with you and the crazy things that happened in my life. It's like 10 years ago, whatever years ago, before I played Survivor, if someone would have said, you're going to be at dinner one day and Sandra Diaz Twine is going to be calling you and like calling you out on what you said on your podcast. It was hilarious.
I think you learned a couple things with that phone call. One is you can pretty much bank on the fact that every single last one of us survivors, whether we admit it or not, we have egos, and and our egos, when bruised in a podcast like this, well, I mean, we're gonna come at you. We're gonna, it's gonna raise our hackles because all of us, well, I mean, all of us would like to think that we're somewhat adept at playing the game of Survivor, whether that be fire making or whatever. So that's one thing. The other thing you can bank on, brother, is that you need to just assume that every single person that is either on the season now or even people that aren't are listening to this podcast. So when you choose to talk shit about people, you got to be ready to fucking come back and have to address whatever beefs anybody will have about what you said. So, I mean, I preface all, and anytime I do one of these things, I try to preface it by saying, look, I only know you guys. I mean, Sandra, I know personally, but, all of y'all that are on season 39 right now, Island of the Idols, all of what I'm saying is based on what I'm seeing on TV, which is obviously a very, very tiny percentage of what actually happened out there. So, I'm eating the same, I only get the same 40 minutes per episode that anyone else gets. So obviously I don't know everything. And as I don't pretend to be like an expert on any of this stuff. So, take everything I say with a grain of salt and with a sense of humor as well. But what I'd like to see out of this Sandra Fairplay kind of situation is I'd love to see you guys somehow figure out a way to have a Fair Play versus Sandra Fire challenge. I'd kind of like to see it. It would be kind of delicious to watch Sandra whoop Fair Play's ass in a fire building challenge after he kind of called her out on the fact that she doesn't make fire when we know she does.
Right. Oh yeah. And the thing is like a lot of times when Survivor's on TV for the 40 minutes or whatever, 42 minutes, they don't show everything that goes down. So like, if something happens and you're making fire every day, if they choose not to show you making fire every day, then people might think this person doesn't know how to make fire or do this or that. So it is crazy, the editing. But
and even more important than that is they could show your skills or not, but for all of us that go out there and we put ourselves out there and when we're on a season of Survivor, all of us would like to think that at the end of the season that people that watched us got to know who we are. But you know what? Here's the thing. I mean, I'll break it down to all of y'all who are fans and viewers of the show, but that didn't actually play it. You don't really get to know us as human beings. You get to see, those aspects of our personality that CBS and Survivor decided they wanted to showcase. In some cases, it could be, all of the worst things that you said or did out there. In some cases, you could get the heroes at it. But the only time you're really ever going to get to know us as people is if you meet us face to face and hang out with us at a charity event, or you bump into us, in your day-to-day life. At that, I guarantee if you were to bump into one of us in the grocery store and have like a 3-minute conversation, you would probably have a better feel for who we are as a person than after watching us for 13 episodes on television, because, then you're really getting to actually meet us, as who we are rather than who we've been portrayed to be. And I don't have any problem with, CBS or Survivor editing me as, they choose to. We all signed up for that. And I'm totally cool with that. Right. But make no mistake, you don't know us until you meet us. But I think we all kind of wished you could. Right. But that's why I love to meet the fans. When I get to meet them, then I'm like, okay, this is Lex. What you saw on TV is not necessarily Lex. But right. Now that we've met, now you get to meet me. You're Matt, same thing.
Right. Exactly. And that perfect scenario of that when Johnny and I were at Hearts of Reality. Uh, Wendy Diaz, who was on Edge of Extinction, she had Tourette's, and she was like kind of like I was talking in the podcast like, God, she annoys me and this and that. We met her, we interviewed her poolside, and I, she was one of the coolest freaking people from Survivor that I've ever met. And I told her, I said, Wendy, I love you. You are literally one of my favorites, and I'm stoked we got to interview you poolside because you are totally a different and cool like than I saw you on TV. So perfect example. But man, tonight, episode 2, Island of the Idols. We start out on the Lyro tribe, night 3. They come back from tribal, and we all know that coming back from tribal, especially that first one, man, can be crazy. Everyone's tripping out. Everyone is freaking out. And the dude, Vince, he starts tripping like that there were votes against him. He's like calling people out. He's not holding anything back, which honestly, pre-game, like before the season started, like I didn't think that this guy would be that bold. I thought he might be a little bit more chill, but this guy is not afraid to call people out and to say, look, I'm not stoked that, there were votes against me. And then this Aaron dude, and Aaron is the one with the, it was funny because preseason, he's got this big tribal tattoo on his
Right.
shoulder. And in my assessment, I was like, oh, God, this guy's got a freaking tribal tattoo. What the fuck, man?
Yeah, no, for me, I'm with you on that. It's like that's an instant, like, okay, that's one demerit against you.
Oh yeah. So he's like, he's commenting on social media, like, dude, I was laughing at your podcast, man. That was a decision I made when I was younger. Blah blah blah. But anyways, enough of the trouble. But Aaron is kind of bummed. He was out of the loop on that first vote. So in the game of Survivor, when you are not in kind of the know of what is going on, that is not a good place to be. You know what I'm saying? And we show Missy, she's trying to do damage control and just kind of, and that's kind of like what I would do. Like after our first tribal on my season, it's like, God, like I had people after my ass and I was having to do damage control and I calmed the situation down. So Missy is super cool trying to calm the situation down. But, I think that, after tribal, it's normal to be tripping. And I think that they made the right decision maybe on their first vote. It's like in the game of Survivor, even watching tonight, you got to be cool to everybody, man. You can't ruffle any feathers, especially in 2019 Survivor. You know what I mean?
That's right. Different. Absolutely.
And as we saw tonight, there was a super likable. I was bummed out on who went home.
Oh my God! Don't even get me started because she was out of everybody, out of the entire cast. I had her picked as my number one to go absolutely all the way. Molly was my favorite. I mean, she was my favorite. And I don't know, again, this is like an interesting situation where, and I'm sorry to kind of jump to the end because we're already talking about kind of what happened. But this to me is like it's the perfect example of where I think sometimes the editors might not get it as right as they could, because not only was Molly blindsided, but I think most of us were blindsided as viewers as to why did Molly go. So I understand they had the narrative that Nora and Jason provided about, them being nerds and Molly being popular. I don't buy that, partially because she didn't strike me as somebody that was like kind of that bullying kind of popular girl. And she also, she's the only person I think in the history of the game of Survivor that has listed as her favorite TV show, other than me back in 2001, she listed Freaks and Geeks as her favorite TV show, which is a show that celebrates the nerds and the misfits, right? So I think that she self-identified probably also as an outsider or a misfit or somebody that's not like in the popular crowd. So that narrative didn't ring true to me. And I thought it was really sadly ironic that at the end, towards the end, right before Tribal Council, Jason actually mentioned Freaks and Geeks before they went to Tribal. I don't know if you caught that, but it like
oh yeah, I do
immediately
yep.
my alarms went off and I'm like, oh my God, Jason's actually about to vote her out with the majority. And he mentioned the very show that she listed on her Survivor bio as her favorite show. And tonight is the night that she's going. I just found that so sad. So that's my long-winded way of kind of saying, I feel like we didn't get to see the real, I think, behind the scenes story or narrative of why Molly went home. Maybe it's just that if I was a betting man and I have to guess, I'd say that she played really hard, probably too hard, too fast, and was perceived maybe not necessarily as a bullying popular girl, but as somebody that would probably curry the favor of a jury and had likely had legs to go a really long way if they didn't get rid of her early. But, all that said, I was just sad to see her go because I think that she was a player that would have been a delight to watch, for 13 seasons.
I agree. I'm looking at the cast photo right now from when we did our cast assessment. And, she was a fun person. She was a cute chick. She was full of energy. She had a great personality. And even Boston Rob and Sandra in their little spy shack were shocked that she went home. I think everyone was shocked because, in my opinion, dude, it was too early. This was, their first tribal council. And it's like, I get it that in 2019 Survivor, people are playing 100 miles an hour and wanting to get out the big threats early and this and that. But there's also something to be said about having a cool vibe around camp.
100% agree with you. That's the thing. You've got to understand that when you come back from that tribal council and there's been a blindside and some of the people weren't privy to it, it is going to create a culture of paranoia where everyone's going to wonder. And Jeff teed it up perfectly when he said, here's the beauty and the beauty of a blindside is that, well, now all of y'all know that it could be any one of you. And the one thing you want in the early stages of the game, if you want to not keep going back to tribal council, is you want unity. You want that sense of family in the tribe, at least for the first, 5 or 6 tribal councils, maybe 4 or 5 at least, until you're looking at the possibility of emerge and an every man for himself scenario, or every woman for themselves scenario. You want people need to feel like they kind of have a sense of what's happening, what's coming up, and that it's not every 3 days, no matter what you say or do, it could be your name on there. So this tribe, I don't have a crystal ball, but we'll have to see. This could mean that this tribe is is it Lyro? I cannot keep them straight, but this is the purple tribe, right? Purple tribe.
Yeah. Well, the purple tribe is called Vokai. And Lyro, I call it Lyro because I'm a big fan of Egypt, and Cairo is
okay. So Lyro, we may see now that Lyro is going to win more challenges because they might have better tribal unity than the purple tribe, because now the purple tribe have been, their world has been kind of blown up because of this decision to do this blindside, and these groups that had kind of gelled for a few days, for 6 days, have now been all blown up.
Right.
That could hurt.
Yeah. And the thing is crazy is like going into the, cast assessments before the show started, it seemed, and I went to, I listened to a lot of like pregame interviews after we kind of did our podcast. I listened to Rob has a podcast, and Josh Wigler did some interviews.
Yeah.
And I listen to all because at work I have a lot of time to listen to stuff, which is awesome. So I listened to all of the Lyro tribe, and overall it seemed like a super fun, laid back, laughter kind of vibe. And then the Vokai tribe seemed to be more of a serious tone kind of thing. And we're kind of seeing that at camp and even at tribal council, you know. So going back, Molly got voted out, sucks. But we go at the beginning of the episode, we see Nora, who is annoying the shit out of people. She's calling everyone lazy. It's like 6 a.m. And she's like, man, why aren't people pulling their weight? And she's just being really
Abrasive.
Yeah, exactly. And that
Yeah.
is like, if you watch Survivor time and time again, like Napalm Natalie from a couple of seasons ago, she was doing the same thing. Like, it's time and time again, people that come across like that just become targets. And it would be someone that if I was out there, I'd be like, I don't want this annoying person on my tribe.
Right. They're usually clearly the early boots. The people, you can almost kind of just chart on every season. The first at least couple, 3 people that usually go not because they're too strong or too strategic. It's often because they just annoy the hell out of everybody else on the beach.
Right.
Which is why, I didn't see Jason going. I just couldn't imagine Jason going at this point, even though he personally felt like an outsider. But Nora, she, to me, seemed like, the perfect candidate for first boot out of that tribe.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. No, they're painting a picture that Nora is very just abrasive and annoying, and she may be cool in real life, but honestly, throughout the episode, it's just like, dude, I would not want her on my tribe. So what we go to next is the Lyro. It's night 4, and the dudes are all totally sucking at making fire, right? So if I'm going out on Survivor, I'm going to be practicing making fire.
And you did. I did.
did.
On my driveway, I was sitting there with sticks and whatnot.
100%, dude. And you played early on. So if you're playing in 2019, knowing there's a fire challenge at a
no excuse.
No excuse. So what I thought was badass is Chelsea, who was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Preseason. I love Chelsea. She comes in, she's freaking killing it, makes a fire. Then, while she's looking for firewood, finds a hidden immunity idol in the tree.
That's like a Survivor hat trick right there,
dude. It is. And the thing is bummed out as I am to see Molly go. I am a big fan of Chelsea because I think so. For one, Chelsea just seems fun and cool. She's a super huge fan of the game of Survivor. And listening to some of her pregame stuff, dude, she's like emotional and just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm playing. So
yeah, and I think Chelsea is Molly on
the
Lyro tribe.
Yep.
So it's what's interesting this time because I love the casting. I think I mentioned that last time I was on your guys' podcast. I love the casting in this season, and to me, it really feels like Survivor has found it's found its way back in terms of casting to the classic old school style of casting, which is, you've got so many different people are come in all shapes, sizes, ages, likes, dislikes, political leanings. It's like it's a freak show. It's just a grab bag, and anybody out there watching in America can probably find at least one person that they relate to and one person that they hate, right? But it's also interesting because we always, back in the old days, we knew that because back on Africa in the old seasons, everybody had their doppelganger on the other tribe. So if there was somebody that was like 37, 38, 39 years old, that was male, there was going to be another 38 male on the other tribe. You know, there was, you could almost like pair up, tribe to tribe. You could find the pairs of the people whose doppelganger was on the other tribe. And you can kind of do that with this group as well. And I feel like Chelsea and Molly were each other's kind of doppelgangers.
No, that totally makes sense. So I'm hoping that Chelsea makes it far, because not only is she cool, she's making fire, she's got this, just cool personality about her, but in the immunity challenge that we'll get to in a little bit, like, she was killing it as well. But look,
Yeah.
we see Nora, back to a crazy Nora. We see her doing yoga on the beach, and people are complaining like she's making them do like 50 freaking arm raise things, right? And the thing is, man, is what people don't realize is when you're playing Survivor, you are sleep deprived, you are hungry, you're riddled with bug bites. If you're a real fan and you're playing the strategic game, your mind is constantly going. So your physical self and your mental self is exhausted.
Yeah.
So some of these people are like, dude, man, like, I'm all about this, but doing this yoga crap is like, if it were me, I would be like, look, I know for a fact we have an immunity challenge coming up.
Here's the thing. Yeah, my first thing would be like, I want to save my juice for the next challenge. And y'all are going to want all of us to be strong for it. So rather than Survivor yoga time, why don't we have Survivor nap time?
Yeah, exactly.
If we're all going to spend some time not being productive, not fishing, not cooking, not boiling water, whatever they do, well, then why can't we just nap and save our energy? That to me seems to make a lot more sense.
I'd probably be like, throwing the towel. I'm not doing this freaking yoga shit. It ain't happening.
Well, half the people out there were doing it because they're like, okay, I don't want to be the one that's going to sit out by myself in the shelter while everyone else is playing along. So it's like half the people out there did not want to do yoga. Make no mistake. They were like, this is lame, but I'm not going to be the one that's the outsider. Because anytime you're like, you're not playing well with others, or you're misperceived as the outsider. So it's like, I mean, Nora, for one moment in the game so far, Nora had a little bit of control and power over people. Might be the last time, I don't know.
It may be.
But she had everyone's. She had captive attention with everyone, but I don't think it was for the good.
Right.
Clearly, she wore them out, and they lost the flipping challenge.
I know. So, dude, as she's doing the yoga, it gets interrupted by a dude in a little fishing boat. Comes up and he says, "Hey, we have he drops off this message," and Kelly, the MBA student, ends up getting on that boat and going to the island of the idols. So she's on this boat. We see her land on the beach, and she walks up. She sees the statues, or whatever, however they show it.
And I have to say, I love that she had no clue who the statues were of. I don't know if you caught that, but she was like thinking, "Oh, Cochrane, is it going to be Cochrane?" And then she sees the statues. She's like, "Whoa, there's big freaking statues," but I have no clue who that is. And then Sandra and Rob walk out, and I almost wonder if they were like a little disappointed that she didn't recognize their statues. But at that point, she's like, "Oh my God, it's Rob and Sandra." But she didn't catch the clue from the statues, which I personally found kind of delicious.
Oh, yes. So do you think Kelly is, when she finally sees that it's Boston Rob and Sandra, do you think she's like stoked like a super fan would be, like a true super fan? Or do you think she just kind of like, oh man, I recently watched whatever CBS told me to watch, and I found out who they were?
I guess on first, as I watched the episode, it seemed to me that she was having another fan freak out moment, which, bummed me out a little bit, because I understand that people nowadays, they've seen many episodes. There's lots of old players that sometimes they come back. People tend to be, players naturally tend to be huge fans of the show.
Right.
It's hard for me to kind of relate to that, because when I played, I hadn't really watched much of the show, so I don't understand that dynamic. But I wish that there wasn't so much and that's one of the reasons I don't like returning players mixed with with new players. I don't like the whole like fan freak out aspect of it. I don't like the fact that it almost gives an edge to the people that are alumni versus the newbies that are now disarmed and are, you know, and truth be told, you can see that probably one of the reasons that she was so worried about not being able to answer those questions is that I think that one of the reasons she wasn't listening to everything Rob and Sandra were telling her as they were getting ready to test her was because she was still going, oh my God, I'm sitting here next to Rob and Sandra. That almost seemed like not a fair challenge, even though she did win it.
Right.
But I do not like the whole like fan, you know, the fan fawning over Rob and Sandra. I just, it to me, it seems to go against what the whole kind of spirit of this is, that they are supposed to be kind of just wise, sage mentors, but instead they're like celebrities and these people are like fawning over them. That's not really very productive.
Right. And it is crazy. One thing that I found that was fun. Well, first of all, if I'm a newbie and I'm on this season, I'm going to be pissed because there's a guy named Dean Kowalski, who's on the Lyra tribe. I haven't seen one confessional.
Yep.
We don't know who he is. Karishma Patel, really don't know who she is.
Well,
even Elaine Scott, who was a fan favorite from episode 1.
Yeah.
We are getting so much of Sandra and Rob.
Well, let me distill it. Let me boil it down for you so that it's even easier to understand, and this will probably make you a little angrier. But I mean, I actually timed how much time did their segment get on this episode. It got over 8 minutes. Now, each episode of Survivor, if you pull out the commercials, is about 44 minutes. Okay, that means that the Rob and Sandra segment, which I'll argue is totally worthless. For me, it's the least entertaining part of the season to watch. It accounts for 20% of the airtime, almost 20%. That's almost a quarter of the airtime. And for what? And part of that was having to watch for the second time in a row, Rob read the instructions word by word when Kelly got to the beach. I mean, did you see that? They have these instructions, and he has, I mean, Rob, sorry, I hate to bust your chops, but you'd think that you would have at least been able to memorize, if you're going to be out there and you're going to have to do this like 13 times, you could memorize 4 or 5 sentences on a piece of parchment rather than having to read it, you know, with your finger in front of the person. Just, you know, just paraphrase it. But but 8 minutes of this episode wasted on that segment to me is way too much. I want to get to know these people better, and I want to know what's going on with their game.
I agree. I mean, the thing that I thought was crazy too is like, you know, Kelly's this MBA nerd student. Like, I'm really smart, but then like she was like hesitant on at first doing this test based off of, it boiled down to they were just having a conversation, and then, you know, it was kind of obvious what was happening. Boston Rob, Sandra giving facts about their life, which was going to be a test for Kelly to figure out, right? So she actually says, though, I have a terrible memory. And I'm like, you're like this freaking like super nerd, like college person. How do you have such a bad memory? You know what I mean? But she ends up actually pulling it off. Rob had to sweeten the deal because at first she wasn't going to take the test.
Good on her for not biting on the first offer.
Right.
First of all, good on her for that. And I would argue that I think that part of her nerves wasn't that she really genuinely thought she had a terrible memory, but maybe she's so smart or smart enough that she could smell a deal here that was too good to be true. Or because, you know, I was watching this and I'm like, God, it's obvious that Rob and Sandra are turning the screws on her. They're kind of pressuring her to do this. They want her to take this test, and she can smell potential disaster if she fails. A, she'd be embarrassed, but B, she'd also have to go back and she wouldn't have a vote. So maybe she was nervous because she thought something here smells fishy. you know?
But if you're a newbie, Lex, are you going to just go for it and put all the cards out on the table in any circumstance, or are you going to be like really mulling it over?
I would have been really nervous if I was Kelly. I would have been really nervous about actually pulling the trigger and agreeing to take that challenge.
True. I mean,
because here's the thing, she also didn't know. They didn't tell her, is this going to be multiple choice? What kinds of questions are you going to ask? What are the details going to be? They could have asked her the most, out of that whole conversation, because obviously Rob and Sandra knew exactly what they were going to tell her. They were just literally rattling facts at her. Probably for every one fact that Kelly shared with them, they were rattling off like 10 or 20 facts about themselves.
Right.
There's only so much in that situation that you can actually retain.
Right.
And so they could have she could have easily failed just as easily as she won. So personally, I might have just said, you know what? I'm just going to let y'all sit on this, and I'm not going to take your challenge, but it was really nice to meet you, and see you on the other side.
Right. Well, it's fascinating because as we've seen, both times that castaways have gone to the Island of the Idols, they've taken the challenge, right? And the first time last week, they failed the fire challenge. I would have, the fire challenge against someone that's a badass at making fire. I think denying that challenge.
I would have taken that challenge.
You would.
I would have taken that challenge, no problem, for sure. I would have taken that challenge.
Okay.
This one seemed not as fair. The fire challenge, like everyone's got the same shit to make fire with. I'm going to make a fire. It's you against me. Best person wins, right? This one though, it's so easily fixed, right?
Yeah.
And here's the other question I have. Do you think that if Kelly had said, "Yeah, I'm not really sure about this," do you think Rob would have come back like used car salesman and said, "Wait a second, let me sweeten the deal even more"? Do you think, because it seems to me that Survivor really wants everybody to do the challenge.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, because it's way more entertaining, right?
100. I think literally because, he sweetened the deal. First, it was like get 4 out of the 5 questions. You get a hidden immunity idol or whatever for the next 2 votes. And if you lose your vote.
Yeah.
And then he negotiates like, well, you can have this idol for 3 votes. So, yes, I agree with what you're saying. I feel that the whole point of these mentors, Sandra and Rob, they are wanting these contestants to engage in what's going on. So I think, yes, if she would have said, you know what, I still don't think I want to do it. He probably would have there probably is a backup plan of an even more ridiculous scenario for her to do that. I think, because like you said, the whole point of having them out there is for this thing to happen. And we've seen both episodes, the premiere and this episode, that the castaway is taking the challenge. So she decides to play. Kelly wins, and she gets super emotional, dude. She starts crying, and she didn't think that in the Game of Survivor she would be crying in this particular way. But, she's, and I get it, man. It's like, I got emotional. I'm a huge fan. So, like, man, when I remember being on the boat ride into freaking day one, like the game is starting, we're on the opening scene, they're filming us. I got this smile on my face, and I literally was overcome with emotion and joy. And I was holding back tears because I'm like, I cannot fucking believe that I'm playing Survivor right now. Because I've seen you and Johnny and everyone else do. Like, I've wanted it for so long. So she gets emotional, and I think she was just kind of like, it was one of those moments where she's like, holy shit, I gambled and I made the right decision.
And she kicked ass. I mean, she kicked ass. She did not get one wrong.
She didn't. And it was funny because like my kids were like giving the answers. My kids were getting them all right, and I was like, yeah, that's good. That's good. Because I probably would have gotten them fucking wrong. But she gets emotional. And then when she goes back to camp, this is another instance where she is making up a story. She's not telling her tribe what went on. and she ends up like trying not to be too suspicious. She has this idol she has in her ponytail, right? And it's funny because my wife Tessa was like, I bet you $20, Sandra, that was a Sandra thing. Like she told her to do that. So I
Huh.
actually, it was funny because she's, Tessa's looking at her phone and she is seeing Sandra's Twitter. And Sandra basically made some post during the show of, oh, I wanted to make sure her ponytail was tight. So I think this was I don't think she would have been clever enough, Kelly, to do this thing on her own because
So
she empties out all
Tessa
her.
called her. Tessa called it out. That's, you know what? Mad props to your wife for calling that out.
Yeah, she called it out, and then
And I
literally,
think that that's not personally. I think it's kind of not cool that that Sandra helped Kelly on that, because I think that that should be 100% up to Kelly how she smuggles that freaking idol into camp. I think that that should be 100% up to her.
but do you think? I mean, honestly, do you think that these players are clever enough to do something like that on their own? You know what I mean?
I mean, maybe not.
Right.
You know,
Well,
some people that, I mean, that all boils down to who you are. I know that when we played Survivor Africa, I remember the day, the morning we were all set to leave. They were going to, put us in the overlander, and we were going to drive out to the actual place where we played. And there was about a hour to 2 hour process where they actually had people search every part of our clothing,
yeah.
to make sure no one had taken something, had sewn something in the hem of their shorts or put something in their hat or whatnot, smuggled anything. So I think some people are smart enough to figure that stuff out. Some people are not.
Right on, right on. Well, we go to the immunity challenge, man, and I knew that there was going to be a lot of swimming challenges. And the cool thing is Janet, who's a lifeguard, and the I believe it's Elizabeth, who's the freaking Olympic swimmer. It's cool to see badass swimmers in some of these challenges. So this is a challenge where you have to basically swim out, release a ladder, climb up a ladder to get the balls for this final piece of the challenge, which is like a labyrinth type thing where you got to get the balls in these three different spots. And man, I tell you what, dude, like there's a lot of things I love about Survivor, but the challenge department and the dudes that make up the challenges, it just when I'm sitting on my couch, I'm like, damn, dude, I want to do that challenge.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, yeah. John, who designs all that with a team, that guy's arguably one of the best in the business, bar none.
Oh yeah,
I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, and who doesn't want to do who doesn't want to compete in every single challenge that they've seen on Survivor,
so
except for maybe some of the, like, the really super nasty endurance ones. Those are no fun for anybody. But the obstacle courses, hell yeah.
So was he John Kerhofer?
Yeah.
Was he the challenge producer when you
Yes.
played Survivor
He's
Africa?
he's been there since, I think, season 1. I think he might be, other than Probst and Burnett, he might be the only person on staff that's been there from day one. I mean, that guy is an absolute fucking legend.
He is, and that's fucking awesome. And I want to say something. You're mentioning Probst. So earlier we weren't sure if you were able to catch the East Coast feed. So I was like, shit, who could I, as a worst case scenario, who could I talk to? So I hit up Michael Snow, who was my main alliance guy on Survivor Caramel, and you would love Michael Snow.
Yep.
The motherfucker is awesome. Well, he was, because I was going to have him maybe join as a third guest, whatever. He had stuff going on, but he texted me a text tonight, and what it was a screenshot from a Jeff Probst tweet. And Jeff Probst tweets out, to those of you frustrated by the Survivor spoilers and the promos, I have to admit, I too find it mind numbing, and it pains me to have joined in your complaints against at Survivor CBS, but I am. And basically, so Michael's like mutiny. So according to Jeff Probst, he is like, there's a lot of spoilers, like they show previews for the episodes, which kind of give away some of the cliffhanger fun things that we see. I don't want to see spoilers, dude, in Survivor.
Well, no, and you know what? I mean, you and I, we know a lot of survivors, obviously. Like, for example, I mean, hope I'm not spoiling anything for anyone here, but most of us know that season 40 is going to be a winner's season, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, I'm like brothers with Ethan.
Yeah.
I talk to Ethan all the time. I talked to him just a few days ago, and when I talk to him, I say, I don't want to know nothing. Yeah. I know you went and played season 40. I don't want to know. I want to watch it.
Yeah.
And he to his credit, he also said, I ain't going to share anything because I don't want to spoil it either. Yeah, but totally. I'm not a big fan of the spoilers. I don't like the spoilers that come out months ahead of time. And I certainly, I mean, I know about social media. I've learned not to like get on my Facebook or whatnot because I'm on the West Coast. But nothing, chaps my hide more than, accidentally getting on social media at like 6:30, 7 o'clock my time, an hour before Survivor airs. And all of a sudden up in the feed is all so-and-so got voted out. And I'm like, well, I guess I don't got to watch that.
Yeah, it ruins it. Like,
it's such a bummer.
It's like the whole point of Survivor is the cliffhanger of knowing like who is it gonna be tonight. If you want a spoiler, like I just don't freaking get that.
Yeah, but, I mean, do me a favor, all you fans out there that really feel like you get a thrill out of spoiling it, just please don't post it on social media until at least the West Coast feeds have, at least we've watched it on the West Coast. If you really need to spoil it, just go out to your window or open your front door and shout, so-and-so got voted out of Survivor tonight. And,
right.
and hopefully that'll help you get your rocks off, but don't put it on social media.
No. But at this challenge, man, it's a cool challenge. Chelsea kills it. She climbs up the ladder.
Yeah. Have you ever seen have you ever seen people get so fired up about a spice rack though?
I know.
I mean, dude. when he pulled that little, sheet off of the spice rack, you would have thought that he was like exposing a mountain of like a pile of gold bricks or something. People went nuts. They went berserk for spice rack. I'm like, I've never seen people get so fired up about a spice rack.
They were super fired up. They were super fired up. And the one thing on this season too that I've noticed, they've had axes and tools to build their shelter. When I played Survivor Caramo in season 26, we had a machete and a pot.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, Survivor Africa was super gnarly, and I'll just say All Stars, not to be sitting here going, oh, ours was harder than yours or whatnot, but I have to say I get pretty pissed off. So just about, I think every season, maybe every season after All Stars, when they get the fishing kit, when you win the fishing kit,
right?
It's got a mask, it's got the Hawaiian sling, right?
Yep.
So people probably didn't notice this, but on All Stars, we won our fishing kit. Okay. It had a mask.
Yep.
It had a Hawaiian sling.
Yeah.
Period. No snorkel. Okay. So try fishing where you every like 20 seconds or 15 seconds, you got to grab air. You can't just hover and breathe through a snorkel. Okay. That's A. Now that's a small part of it. The bigger deal is we got no swim fins, no flippers.
Yeah.
Now, try spearfishing fish that are much better swimmers than you if you don't have a pair of swim fins on. Mm-hmm. We are not naturally very fast or powerful swimmers if we're just using our leg sticks, because that's what you got. You got leg sticks. You got two sticks with no fins. It's really hard to get deep. And so I was like, and then to add insult to injury, our mask was like a circa 1960s mask. It was basically like the one that goes like this. It's got a flat piece of glass and it doesn't have the thing that you can pinch your nose. Right. This is probably like, way more detail than people are interested in. But to me, it's kind of interesting because if I was a Survivor geek, I'd be like, whoa, in Survivor All-Stars, they weren't able to equalize pressure when they went deep to go fishing. Right. But no swim fins, no snorkel. It was way harder for us to catch fish with a spear than the people that get flippers, a snorkel,
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to jump off my soapbox now because I know that that's kind of lame, but
no, but it drives me insane. But you never know. It's like some of the tribes get more shit than others, and it is what it is. But anyways, we see that it's kind of, it gets close. That's the thing about Survivor challenges that people don't realize. It's like when you realize that, man, we still have a chance. It's kind of like the Jamal versus Missy showdown at the end of this challenge, and Missy finally kills it, and Lyro wins. So it was a cool challenge, man. And like I said, back to the swimmers. It's so funny. People are starting to comment. Well, Johnny's online. Johnny says Johnny looks like shit. He's talking.
Oh, Johnny, you look like shit, dude. Come on. You're the one you're the one that actually puts on a Tanya Vance, a beautiful girl. You put her jersey on in a in a celebrity softball game. I mean, dude, come on, you're a turd. But thank you for letting me sit in your spot. I want to apologize for Mentally Will. He just put up there that on my word back the last episode, I picked Molly and he actually picked her and put money on it. And I apologize, Will. I also was really heartbroken to see Molly go. I'm sorry about your $20. If I meet you, maybe I'll just have to give you that $20, or I'll buy you a few beers.
I'll buy you a few beers. That's 100%. So we see after this challenge, Nora is like, dude, she's telling her tribe, I want to stay, right? So we see Jamal, Jack, the long-haired dude that's just like, whatever, and Molly. They're in an alliance. And Jamal is like, I want to split the vote between Molly and Jason, okay? Because we don't know what is going to happen. And then Molly is like, dude, I want Nora out because Nora is freaking annoying as shit. So it seems to me like if I'm looking at this situation, I'm like, man, I want Nora out of this game. I don't even see Molly at all as a target in this situation because we saw Jason earlier on, episode 1, looking for idols. People are freaking out. And when we finally go to tribal council, Jason pours out his bag. He's paranoid. He's freaking out. He knows everyone is worried about this idol. He's like, look, I don't have an idol. He pours out his bag. And people are like, oh, dude, you don't need to do that. But he is kind of proving to everybody, like, look, I know you guys thought, early on, I kind of made a bad impression that I was going off, trying to find idols, but I don't have one. So he's covering his ass. And then we see kind of Nora talking about in her real life. She's like, I'm kind of always an outsider doing the different kind of thing. And that's kind of the way that I'm doing this in the game of Survivor. And she's kind of on the defensive. And then I find one of the players, dude, it's Lauren. She's the one with she's got braids in her hair and stuff.
Yeah.
She has been a really smart player. Like leading up to tribal council, she kind of is like, I think she could go really far in this game, especially looking at her tribe as a whole. I think because the long-haired dude, Jack, he kind of reminds you of the Joe Anglim kind of player. He's just like, yo, bro, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah.
Type deal. He's not a strategic player, right?
Yeah.
Nora's annoying. Jamal seems smart. Tommy Sheehan, which is the 4th grade redheaded school teacher, he seems like a cool guy, but a lot of the strategic kind of mastermind type things is going on. Lauren Kelly seems really smart.
Well, I
Dan,
think,
who, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say Lauren is really the one, arguably, that led the charge to get rid of Molly. So
She did, and
she was the one that was really pushing it early on. And again, I'll have to say, I think that we, because they can only show so much stuff in 40 some minutes per episode. We
Right.
were not. I don't think we were really privy in the first two episodes. We weren't allowed to see exactly why Molly was targeted, but obviously she garnished so many votes in this tribal council that there was a real reason that she got voted out.
But I'm
We
saying
just
this
didn't get to see it
true. But
because
Lex,
you and I both think that it should have been Nora, but
let me
you know,
ask you this, Lex: is it too early? I mean, this is their first tribal. It's like, yes, So how are you supposed to play Survivor in 2019, dude? It's like you go on Survivor and you want to be likable. You don't want to be like a Nora who's doing annoying shit. Reem Daly got voted out first on the edge of extinction because she was doing the same thing, right?
well, it almost feels to me like, which I kind of hope this isn't the case, but it almost seems to me like you've got to walk this razor's edge like a tightrope. You got to walk the blade of this knife to where you're likable enough that you won't get voted out, but not so likable that you're a threat. Whereas, really in the old days, back when I first played, it's like guaranteed if you were well liked and you gelled with the tribe, you were guaranteed pretty much at least 4 or 5 tribal councils if you just kept your alliances kind of solid and you didn't piss anyone off. But now it almost seems like, because Molly was really well liked and she was obviously well respected, it almost seems like if you're really well liked and really well respected, well, that's going to land you a spot on fucking tribal council to get your name written down, which is it's how do you just walk that razor's
I don't know,
edge?
dude, because I like myself, for example, I'm an outgoing, fun dude, and it's like in 2019 Survivor, it's like, what is the magic thing? It's like we've seen, back in the early days, it's like if you were a challenge beast like Colby or Ozzy, you were a threat, right? And then if you were a strategic player, um, you were a target, and then now it's like if you're just a social player, because it's like strong social game, we always hear it. And even going into my season, I was like, dude, I'm going to get along with everybody. My social game is going to be my number one thing. Like, yes, I'll do decent in challenges. Like, I'm kind of an athletic guy, but I'm not going to be like the dominating force.
Maybe people have finally totally cracked the code, because you and I both know that virtually just about every season Survivor was won on a social game. Like, at the end of the day, we all vote as jury members. We vote really for the people that we felt connected to and that we liked. I mean, that has a lot to do with it. As much as some of us would hate to admit it,
right.
It's got a lot to do with it. So, but I would also argue that maybe the answer to those questions, like how do you play? Do you hit challenges hard, or do you go social hard or not? Or do you save that and do you hide that? A lot of that may also have to do with the tribe that you're with. Like, it's never been more important as a player when you're out there to read your other tribe mates and say, okay, what is going to set these people off? And I know that, I mean, that's like reading tea leaves or looking at a crystal ball, but that is part of the game, is trying to suss out, like, what are these people going to, how are these people going to respond to somebody who's super social? Are these people kind of insecure? If they're insecure, then I probably shouldn't be everyone's best friend in an obvious way. The one thing that I would, and this is kind of slightly off topic, but kind of not, the one thing that I want to tell to people out there who might be watching and might have designs on one day applying to Survivor or playing Survivor, is that I feel like one of the things that Nora and Jason did that I would caution them not to do is they made in my mind, they made a mistake of kind of self-exiling themselves from the tribe. They immediately kind of made these assumptions that they were outsiders and they were nerds and they were not part of the group. And we saw in Tribal Council when Jason kind of mentioned that people were like, no, I actually thought you were cool. Which
right. Molly said that.
Yeah, and go back to high school, like self-admittedly, I'll just tell you, I was a total nerd, a total geek in high school. I was bullied, the whole nine. And I was often my own worst enemy. I just made assumptions that that I wasn't cool enough. And here's the thing, on Survivor, which is just this microcosm of the real world, this like concentrated, extreme distilled version of the real world. Whatever you project, the way that you see yourself, how you perceive yourself is probably more than likely how other people are going to perceive you. So that's just like my little bit of advice to those of you out there who, one day would like to play Survivor. Make sure when you're out there, try not to have these issues that like Nora and Jason had, where your self-esteem, where you project your own lack of self-esteem and say, I'm an outsider. I'm toast.
Right.
I'm on the outs. Because if you feel that way, and if you allow that to kind of take hold on you, chances are the people that those other 6 or 8 people that you're playing with are going to pick up on that, and they're going to smell death, or they're going to smell easy pickings, and they're going to write your name down. So, try as much as possible to just be comfortable, be confident. Don't be overconfident, but certainly don't like self-sabotage and say, I'm an outsider. I'm on the outs.
No, never ever put yourself under the bus. So you are definitely bummed out that Molly's gone. So
oh my God, yeah, Rennie, I'm heartbroken. Molly was my number one pick. I'm totally heartbroken. I think she went way too early. I think she had a shit ton of game totally left in her. I really hate to see that she went on a blind side. I can't say that I've never been part of a blind side. I've done it myself. We did it to Hatch. We did it to Colby in All Stars. But it's heartbreaking when people go that way. And I love Molly, and I'm super sad that I'm not going to get to see her anymore. And I'm sad that 5 or 6 episodes from now, most people will not even remember that she was out there, which is what happens. It's like such a bummer.
It is a bummer. And someone says, Phantom Spirit Bombs, who are your favorite players right now? So I would say, honestly, from the Vokai tribe, Molly's gone. She was one of my favorites. But Lauren Beck, she is a favorite of mine. She's the one with the braids in her hair. She's freaking
I can't remember her name offhand, but the swim instructor, I think she's playing
Janet, Tommy, and Lauren.
She's playing a shrewd game. She's like staying under the radar, but she's still playing, and I think that's kind of rad.
100%. On the Lyro tribe, I'd say Missy Bird, who dominated in tonight's immunity challenge.
Elaine.
Elaine.
Still
Chelsea,
up there for me. Yep.
Chelsea, badass. So I'm excited to see how the season goes. Hopefully we'll see less of Boston Rob and Sandra. Not that I don't like Sandra. I just feel that I want to see the newbies. But, so far, as far as the twist, I'm not hating it as much as I thought I would. I'm not hating it as much as Johnny Fairplay was.
Or as much as I am.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I'm a little bit open-minded. We'll see how it goes. But another fine episode. And Lex, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Johnny is gone. He abandoned me for some stupid shit, and he actually says,
"Hey, but you know what? You got me."
Exactly.
And before you sign off, I want to give one. This is one little. I wrote a note to myself. Little bit of advice. Yep. Because tonight's episode reminded me of one thing. One bit of advice to people out there who again are thinking about going out and playing Survivor. There was something mentioned tonight in Tribal Council that to me was very telling, and it totally brought me back to my old days on Survivor. Somebody got called out. I don't remember his name, but he got called out for not bringing his bag to tribal council. Okay, so here's my advice to you all. If you're playing Survivor, I don't care how confident you are, always bring your bag to tribal council. And not just because bringing your bag might put a target on your back at the last minute tribal, but honestly, guys, it's just a respect thing. If you don't bring your bag, it's like you're just saying, okay, I don't need to, and all of y'all are dog shit, and you're on the bottom of the totem, so good thing you brought your bag, but I don't need to bring my bag. It's a respect thing. Bring your bag. Don't ever leave your bag at camp. That's what I'm going to say.
100%. And like I said, Lex, thank you so much. And for those that are just tuning in to our podcast, Survivor NSFW, Johnny Fairplay, he's out tonight on a special engagement, but he will be back, and we will be having great coverage throughout this season of Island of the Idols, which I'm already more stoked on this season than I am on last season, Edge of Extinction. And if you want to support our podcast, I will say this. Become a patron. We do a weekly Q&A, patreon.com/SurvivorNSFW, and check out our website, SurvivorNSFW.com. Until next week, cheers, everybody. It's been real. I love you guys.
Johnny, thank you for letting me take your spot. I love you, brother. But you know who I love more? My wife, Kelly. Happy anniversary, honey. On Saturday, we're going to have 28 years married. I love you. And Maddie, I love you, brother. Dude, and everyone out there, I love y'all.
I love you too, man. All right. Bam. That was fun, man. Thank you so much.